Well, I am an admirer of Elisa's. Elisa has even worked for me, and the fact is that she is talented.
What they call Kermit and Friends?
Kermit and Friends.
Kermit. But
if Kermit,
you're saying
like
not to
frog?
do.
Yeah,
Wait.
I actually have watched a few hours of Kermit and Friends.
How many hours have you watched, Natalie?
Oh, no. Probably indulged in 8 hours.
Holy.
My wife and I watched Benji's ex-girlfriends or whatever's going on. We watched this crazy podcast, and I have to say, this is one of the probably in the top 5 things I think about right now.
She has a podcast, but she gets to come on the radio. It is craziness upon craziness.
I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass.
Hey everybody, welcome to Kermit and Friends, a special Tuesday edition of Kermit and Friends. I am so excited. I'm Elisa. This is Fozzie. Kermit's watching from heaven. It's going to be a fantastic show. We have a really professional broadcaster who's been doing it his whole life coming on the show today. And that's what we need around here. There's a lot of shenanigans that goes on with our group. And I'm just thrilled that, I've been doing this IRL in real life stuff on YouTube like almost every day now. And I'm so excited to share like how I've been doing it because it's transformed my life, you guys. I've met so many people through it. I met a potential husband last night just because I was filming. I was filming and I was feeling friendly. And I was really depressed before I started doing this. I was sad. I didn't even really want to live, you guys. I was working in finance and I was just fucked up. I was depressed. And you guys know that I got bullied out of that job. They bullied me every day there about my relationship. They asked me every day about my relationship, making fun of me, humiliating me. And it felt like I was in like elementary school all over again with people making fun of me. And I just didn't feel like I belonged there. And I didn't feel like I'm the finance type of person. Like I felt uncomfortable in that industry. And I feel so much better now that I can be myself, like interviewing people, getting to know people that I'm impressed with, that I want to be like. That's what we do here. And I'm going to tell you about our super amazing, incredible, and just inspiring guest that we have today. This person, he actually seems like a nice person, which is like nothing like what I met in finance. I didn't meet anybody that was nice, that was following their dreams. And when somebody follows their dreams their whole life, they're a different kind of person, right? They have a different vibe. They have a different energy to them. that's something like I absolutely noticed when somebody is following their dreams and they live on a daily basis like that. And they're not like hating their job. They're not like scamming people. You know, those kinds of people, these finance people that are like scamming people all day for a living, like charging these huge commissions that are just completely unfair to the customer. Those people are unhappy, right? They're not happy. I think the number one way to get happy in life, and what I've noticed, is just following your dreams. And it's confusing. I'm going to ask our guest about this because some people, you know, haven't been successful like he has been successful. So they follow their dreams and they're like depressed and they can't make any money doing it. So that's another, you know, question I have. So Joe Partavila, he's a radio personality, award-winning filmmaker, producer on the legendary New York City radio station 95.5 PLJ. I grew up listening to this. I'm from Jersey. You guys know that. He was part of the iconic, huge, you guys, this is huge. This is like a big level right up there with like Howard Stern and all those big shows, you know, Z100. These are the competitors, right? He's produced over 10,000 hours of audio content over the course of his career. Produced. So this is a big producer, guys. So be good. No weird calls today. In podcasting and terrestrial radio, it's a very difficult industry to succeed in. I know a lot of people that are watching today want to do a podcast. They're scared, right? They're scared. How do I do a podcast? Is anybody going to listen to me? Is anybody going to care what I'm saying? I feel stupid doing this all the time. You know, I felt stupid doing IRL at first, but now I'm enjoying it. So let's get some confidence by listening to one of the top people in the industry, Joe Partavila.
Hello.
Hi, welcome. Welcome to Kermit and Friends.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I was so impressed, you know, looking into that you want to help people in this very hard industry. Your book, Good Listen, is going to help people, right? Because a lot of people want to do this. This is not easy. But you kind of like, I feel like you kind of fell into the radio industry, which is so unusual because everybody wants to do this. Do you believe in God? Do you think God just likes you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I believe in a higher power. I'm kind of agnostic to God. I was like, you know, I went to Catholic school as a kid. I was an altar boy for like 2 weeks, but the hours were killing me. And so I don't know. It's possible that it's fated or something like that. But I always knew growing up, I always wanted to be in radio or television or something. My hero growing up was David Letterman. So as most kids had like, you know, Don Mattingly posters and Jerry Rice posters up in their wall, I had like pictures of David Letterman and like talk show hosts. So I really loved that kind of stuff. And when I went to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And being a kid of immigrants, I didn't really have any in with anybody. I didn't have any contacts or know anybody in the business. So I said, I should probably just play around in the college radio station, see if I like it. I really dug it. And then I had the wherewithal, which looking back now, I was like, wow, I was smarter than I thought I was. But it was sophomore year of my college year. And I was wondering, you know, maybe I should get an internship to see if I like what I'm doing. If I love, if maybe I can make a career out of radio. So I signed up for an internship at PLJ. And the only reason I took this internship, Elisa, as you know, being a Jersey kid going to Manhattan, when you're young, it's super intimidating. Unless you're one of these club kids who like go to the city all the time. I was not that. Like my family was going to the city to go to the Natural Museum of History or go to the tree lighting or something like that. But we never did anything. I never did anything on my own. So I remember.
You were scared of the train, New Jersey Transit?
I think I was just scared of New York in general. To me, it was so large. Even though I grew up in the shadow of the Empire State Building, I lived within 10 to 15 miles of Manhattan my entire life.
Yeah.
So I was just intimidated by the idea of going to New York by myself. Because when I took the internship, I just turned like 19. So I was a kid. I didn't know any better. So the only reason I took this internship though, Lisa, was I thought, what's the easiest way for me to go into the city? I'm like, oh, well, the PATH train from Harrison, New Jersey to Midtown Manhattan. Yeah,
that's not a long ride at all.
No, it's perfect. It turns out that PLJ was located above Penn Station. So it was basically one train ride into the city. I didn't have to go into the dark subway to transfer or something like that, something that like a kid like me was just so scared shitless to do. So I took this internship and it ended up that I worked there for the next 24 years of my life because of convenience.
Wow. So it's a convenient job. I mean, this is the best job in the world. I mean, you became famous from this job, your first job.
Yeah, no, I mean, I worked my way up. So my very first thing was, as anyone knows in radio, the very first thing you do is you work in as an intern in the promotion department. So
Right.
I was the kid who would drive around in the van, hand out T-shirts. But I started making a bit of a name for myself internally because I was pretty good at events and I was good at hosting stuff. And they had just decided to get rid of the morning show producers, and they were looking for just new blood. And I was just so happened I was in the right place at the right time. And they hired me to be first like a call screener. So when you
that's a great job. Wait, that's a job that they hire separately, just a call? Because that seems great. Like you're just answering calls and deciding who's going to be good on air.
That's it. That was exactly as I was doing. And so I'm going to age myself a little bit, but so when I started with Scott and Todd, I think it was like 1996. So the internet and social media was not really a thing. The internet was around if you had AOL and you could dial in and not have your parents use the phone at the same time.
Right.
But I was always full of pop culture knowledge. I was a kid who like consumed television and movies. I was like the kid who read the newspaper and magazines.
Yeah.
And every time they would have a question for something about like who was in this, who was in that, I had the answer for it. So what happened was I went from being locked into this little dingy phone pit that didn't have a window, just had a phone and like a computer screen, to being stuck in the studio with them during the entire 4 hours of the show, because I was sort of like their know-it-all about all things, whether it was movies or television or music. And so me being in the room where it happened, sort of like the Hamilton song, I started ingratiating myself into the show, started becoming part of the show. And then by the time all said was done, I became the executive producer. I was co-host by the end of it. And it was just a really cool run that just so happened because of that easy train ride into Midtown Manhattan.
That really makes me think that, like, I don't know, it makes me more spiritual to hear a story like that. Because it just does, because it's been so smooth for you. And were you intimidated at all being with like the top people in the industry right away?
Scared shitless, Elisa. I mean, I remember early on, one of my first jobs was, and back in the old days of radio, we had these huge radio control boards that had like 60
switches, 1 second, Joe.
Faders, and it was just a nightmare. But my main job was to make sure all the buttons.
Is Joe a Howard Stern fan? Did he ever think about applying for a job there sometime during his radio career?
Oh, that's a good question. Are you a fan of Howard Stern, Joe?
I definitely was a big fan of Howard Stern. Before I started working with Scott and Todd, I listened to Howard all the time. But unfortunately, we were on at the same time. So I couldn't listen to him.
Yeah. So you couldn't listen. So you probably never listened to Howard Stern.
Not while I was working, but obviously, Howard went viral all the time before viral was a thing. So I always heard clips, or I kept track of what he was doing on a show, and then was as someone who's working in terrestrial radio, I was kind of happy he decided to go to satellite, because like, oh, great, the biggest competitor in town is no longer on FM radio in the morning. So that was a cool thing.
Right. And were you kind of hoping to be a co-host the whole time when you were executive producing and doing everything else?
So, I kind of was, but the thing was, Elisa, I was paid so well.
Really?
As an executive producer, like it was a really good paying job.
What exactly do you do as that? What do you do like day to day as an executive producer?
So basically, show prep, booking guests, getting all the content ready for a show. Everything basically you do now, at least for your show. But I was that person. And it was a 4-hour live show. There was a lot to it that had to be prepared each day. And I guess me being paid well, having this great job, working with incredible talent, I never really had the resolve to be like, oh, I should go out on my own. Because if I was going to go out on my own, I'd probably have to go to another market.
No, it's horrible. It's horrible to go out on your own. I don't recommend it to anyone. Don't. If you have a shot with a major show like that's huge and like #1 in the market, do not leave that show. That's what I'm telling just the audience. If you're on a huge show right now and you happen to be watching this, do not leave. Just stay. You're just better off. It's so hard starting something, and you had no choice. So your station got sold to like a Christian, something Christian, and that was not.
So PLJ, as you know, Lisa was there for 48 something years. I was lucky to be there for half of it. And in 2019, our radio parent company, Cumulus Media, was doing really poorly. And the only way these companies that were basically terrestrial radio companies could make money was to sell radio stations. But most radio station companies weren't buying radio stations in 2018, 2019, 2020, just because they couldn't take any more debt from all these other stations.
Right.
The only people who were buying radio stations were nonprofits. And the nonprofit that ended up buying PLJ and several other stations from Cumulus Media was EMF, the Education Media Foundation, and they're essentially a Christian rock station or Christian pop music station that works out of California, but they simulcast their radio station to all over the country. And PLJ now, so if you go to 95.5 in New York now, it's playing now Christian pop music.
I can't believe that. That's upsetting, right? Are you upset by that?
Well, I'll be honest with you. So during those last few years there, it became a bit of a slog. There was a lot of management change, talent change. So it was one of those things where, I mean, going back to what you were talking about earlier, Lisa, about like something fated or by God. I like to joke that I was fired by Jesus because I had a feeling things were going to end eventually. And so why not it be Jesus who fired me? Not like being fired because of performance or the way I was working. It was more of something I had complete and utter zero control over. So I was just like, listen, it is what it is. I was, obviously upset that I didn't have this amazing job where, I was able to interact with thousands and thousands of people. We were in our listening area had 16 million people. We had average of 1 to 2 million a week. So it was pretty amazing. 16
million people know who you are, right?
Well, no, I don't know about that, Elisa.
No,
There's 16 million people in the tri-state area, and we had about 1 million or 2 listeners every week.
Okay. So if you have 1 million or 2 listeners every week, so that's 1 million people that probably know who you are, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Does that translate when you do your own podcast? Because I know you had a sex podcast, and I was excited. I was excited to learn about that. You had a sex podcast, and you did it for 3 years.
Yeah.
And so, can you move the 1 million people from the 95.5 to the sex podcast?
Not really, because Elisa, the reason I did the podcast was, as you know, with PLJ, we were a family-friendly soccer mom station. So I wanted to get into podcasting because I saw that's how the industry was going.
Right.
But what I didn't want to do was just do the same shit I was doing every day. I didn't want to do a gossip podcast or relationships or pop culture. I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to do a format that I could not do in terrestrial radio. So I had met this professor from NYU named Dr. Zhana Vrangelova, and she'd always been interested in doing a podcast. And she
asked you to do a podcast?
She doesn't. We stopped doing the podcast because she writes and teaches. Yeah. So we did a podcast together for 3 years, like you mentioned. It was called The Science of Sex. And I pitched her the idea of what if we did a sex podcast, but like for sex nerds, like all about sex research that was like PhD approved, all of that stuff. Like she was a PhD in casual sex. Like that was her specialty.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
People. Her day job is teaching people how to open up their relationships. So I was like, let's do this podcast where I'm the everyman. I don't know anything. You're the college educated sex expert, and I'll be there to sort of be an avatar for the audience. And so it was a lot of fun being able to do that. I learned a lot, met interesting people, like brilliant people who just know so much about sex and life.
Like a sex nerd, is that someone that just wants like statistics about sex?
Maybe, or it could just be someone who knows the intricacies of it, whether it's different combinations of people, types of sex, all of that stuff. Usually people who are sex nerds are what they call sex positive. So we were definitely like a sex positive show where we were like, it was nothing negative about it. It was all just about what was good about it and what people got out of it.
Yeah. The doctor, were you attracted to the doctor at all?
No. She was like a sister to me. She was like really great, really smart lady. And she does great work too. We both miss doing the podcast because one of those things, and at least I'm sure you know this too, like we stopped doing the podcast, I think in 2019, and we still get like DMs and messages from like, oh my God, I just listened to this episode that we did about PhD for threesomes and random things. So it's cool.
Wait,
that
what for
podcast lived there
threesomes?
forever.
What was the question about threesomes? PhD?
We interviewed a professor from the UK who got a PhD in threesomes.
Oh, wow. A PhD. Yeah. How do you get a PhD in that? You just have a lot of threesomes?
You do the paperwork and all and the research, just like anything else, like you would get a PhD in. And so that was what he got a specialty in. And we did so if you Google PhD in threesomes, this guy will come up. He's from the UK, and probably our episode will pop up too. But yeah, no, it was a really cool and fascinating study.
Wow, that guy, I don't know if he's a good catch or not, that guy.
He'd be open to new ideas. You know that.
All right, we got a donation.
Can Joe tell us his Jennifer Aniston story?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you have a Jennifer Aniston story. You met Jennifer Aniston at one point?
Kind of, sort of. So early in my career, I was sort of the jack of all trades for the morning show. So what we used to do was they used to send me out to like red carpets and track down celebrities and just try to get interviews on the fly. And so Jennifer Aniston was filming her very first feature as a lead in Midtown Manhattan, right across the street from our station. And so we got a call from someone and they said, hey, listen, Jennifer Aniston's right down the street. You should send Monk down there to interview him. That was my air name at the time, Monk. And you should send him down and see if he can get an interview. And they're like, yeah, that's a good idea. Monk, go down there and interview Jennifer Aniston. So I'm like, all right, sure, whatever. So
were you scared? Because she's a huge star.
I wasn't scared at first, Elisa. I was scared when I got down there and there was no one around her trailer but a very large defensive lineman-sized human being standing around the trailer.
Oh no! So she had like security there that wants to they want to keep people like you out.
Correct.
That's their job.
I was this innocent young man, and I didn't know any better. So I go over to the trailer, and he wasn't like a doorman, security guard. Like he wasn't standing right at the trailer door. He was just sort of like wandering. You know, these guys are always keeping a lookout for any kind of strange things happening. So I get really close to the trailer, and all of a sudden he makes a beeline at me. He goes, what do you think you're doing? And so at this point, this is when I get scared. And usually when I get scared, my voice goes up like 10 octaves. And I was like, oh, I'm Monk from 95.5 PLJ. I just want to talk to Jennifer Aniston, just see how she's doing, blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, oh, but it's okay. We're 95.5 PLJ. We're a radio station. Scott Todd in the morning. I'm sure she's a big fan. He's like, nope, not going to have it. So I walk away. I call upstairs and say, hey, guys, Jennifer Aniston's she's not having this. The security guard's not a fan. So they're like, give it another try. So walk back over there, and he had turned his back, and I get back over there, and he's like, what do you think you're doing? And I'm like, oh, it's no big deal. It's Scott Time in the morning. I'm Monkey Boy. I'm just blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, no, get the hell out of here. Meanwhile, Jennifer Aniston hears this commotion from her trailer. She pokes her head outside. And mind you, I was like, this was Jennifer Aniston peak Friends fame. They'd just been on the cover of Rolling Stone. They were basically the Beatles of the 90s. She comes out, and at first when I see her, I'm like, oh, wow, that's Jennifer Aniston. And she goes, excuse me, what's going on out there? And then I go into, oh, it's me. I'm 95.5 PLJ. We want to do an interview. Can you talk to us? And she's like, I'm sorry. I got to be on set in a few minutes, but yeah, maybe some other time. So I was like, all right, I think I tried. Like, she shot me down. It wasn't just the security guard shooting me down. Went back up to the station, tail between my legs, and I was like, oh, well, there's that. Minutes later, our receptionist calls the studio, and she goes, hey, guys, there's someone who says they're Jennifer Aniston's assistant, and they say that Jennifer wants to call in and apologize for what happened downstairs.
Wow. She felt bad.
Yes. So we're like, yeah, you could patch the call through. And Jennifer Aniston calls into the station. We have like this amazing 30-minute discussion. She talks about her dad, who is an actor, her time on Friends, what it's like starting a movie career. It was like the best interview we could have ever happened off the cuff without any preparation or anything like that. And it just turned out that she felt bad for what happened with me and the security guard. So she did an interview with Scott and Todd on the spot.
So she's a good person, Jennifer Aniston. Sounds like.
She is a good person.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny, Elisa? That story is in the book, Good Listen, and it went viral because Page Six picked it up.
I saw that. Did you pitch that story to Page Six, or did they find it somehow?
They must have seen the press release for the book. And so they pretty much wrote up the story from the book. And what I found fascinating, I ended up talking to the people at the Post because they were like, hey, do you have any of the celebrity stories? I'm like, oh, yeah, I've got all these other celebrity stories. And I'm like, oh, no, we want happy celebrity stories, like great run-ins. And I was like,
they did?
Yeah. I was.
What, the press said that? What year? Yes. What year did they ask that? Because they never asked for that.
Elisa, this is apparently the new wave of gossip media in our day that we're living in now. I was shocked. Really? My whole life, I was getting, high off TMZ, Britney stories, and like.
Yeah, exactly. They want to see you when you're down, not when you're up.
But not anymore. Times have changed.
Really?
Yeah. The media. And if you
I'm
notice,
shocked. That's why I'm not in the news anymore. I just figured it out, Joe. I was in the news all the time with my, fiance, Andy Dick. Now I'm never in the news. And maybe this is why.
Oh, I was shocked at this because my whole life was always about negative stories about celebrities and what they're, celebrities behaving badly. I was in shock. And it turns out that that's all they want now right now, because maybe it's post-pandemic, things have changed. I'm telling you, just flip through your favorite gossip site or feed, and you'll notice a majority of the stories, unless it's someone who's like, Adam Levine, sexting.
It's bad with him right now, Joe. It's very, very bad. I can't believe what's going on with Adam Levine.
Outside of that, though, Elisa, you'll see most of the stories are all like great celebrity interactions with fans or something they've done nice.
But you like Adam Levine, because I heard you talk about him. Really nice story. Oh, just one second.
Yeah.
Do you know you made the news for tweeting about Taco Bell's Mexican pizza?
Who made the news about that? You did, Joe?
Yeah. I didn't
did?
even know. I only noticed this afterwards when I started getting these random like likes and retweets. But I'm not a big, I consume Twitter. I love Twitter. It's my favorite social media, but I will post a tweet every once in a while. So a few weeks ago, they announced that Taco Bell was bringing back the Mexican pizza. And so I was like, I'm not a comedy writer, but I basically said something like, hey guys, heard Mexican pizza is back. Life is turning a corner. And something as simple as that. It was like, okay, Mexican pizza is a sign of like good things to come. And apparently like a couple of news outlets picked it up and shared it. And I was like,
isn't that so fun though when that happens? It's so fun. And like then you tweet, you try to get more.
It's usually the thing you do that you're not even the proudest about. Like,
that's true. Yeah, stupid. Like, you do so many jokes and then they pick like your least favorite.
Exactly. I'm telling you, listen, 9 out of 10 times of like any time I've gone quote unquote viral or the press has picked up, I was like, really? That's what they like, even from the book. Like there's some like other stories that you mentioned. There's other stories in the book where I was like, oh, this will be something that the press will eat up. And they're like, no, we like the story about Jennifer Aniston being nice to you. So it's like, okay, I guess, I don't know.
Is it hard to come up? But hold on, I'm just getting a caller. Yes, Kermit and Friends on a Tuesday. How can I help you?
Hey, Elise, big fan of Joe. Love Joe. Been listening to him since I was a kid. Joe, are you single?
No, I am not. Happily married, but thank you for asking.
He's not. I'm sorry, Noodles. Bad news. I'm sorry.
Oh. Well, anyway, listen, I want Elise, a great show. This guy's a great guest.
He's a good guest. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, he's a great guest. I don't know if he knows this. Does he know TJ the DJ?
Yeah, isn't he
from Z100?
Z100, do you know that? DJ?
Yeah. I think I might have met him once or twice. Here's the funny thing, Elisa, because we were so cordoned off in the morning show.
Yeah,
we didn't really hang out with other people.
I get it. I told why would you hang out with like people that are on other stations? Aren't you against those people?
Exactly.
Usually? He's not gonna like that guy.
So
Noodles.
I would meet these people in places and say, if it was like a radio event, but never really intimately got to know a lot of people outside.
I'm trying to bully him back onto the show. I used to beat that kid up every day in high school.
Oh, you did? You were a bully in high school? That's not good, Noodles.
So
that's not a
DJ's bully.
That's not a good thing. You should never be a bully. But he's good in adulthood, though. This guy Noodles, he's a very nice caller. You should apologize. If you bullied him in high school, you should still apologize. Some people did apologize to me, actually.
Oh, nice.
Thank you, Noodles. Thank you. Love you. Yeah. So, in high school, I got like really bullied bad, terribly. I was not popular. I was not cool at all. And actually, I mean, there's good and bad. But when I got on the Howard Stern show, people started writing to me, apologizing for bullying me. So it's good, but it's not that great because, it's just because they wanted to know something or, ask another question. But yeah, just apologize. I think if you bullied, were you a bully in high school, Joe? Or
I was the bully. I was the fat kid in school. So
you were fat?
I was the fat kid in school. I didn't really grow out of my baby fat until I was like 18. Yeah, no, I was.
Wow.
I had a tough childhood when it comes to bullies.
Oh my gosh. Wait, Good Listen, Creating Memorable Conversations in Business and Life. Oh, this is available on Amazon. What is this? Okay.
Yeah, that's Leaf King is plugging my book.
Oh, okay. So that's the book. Okay. So yes, anybody that wants to buy the book, obviously buy the book. We all need help. Everybody's doing a podcast, right?
Yeah.
And we want to make our podcast good. How do you do that, Joe? Come on. That's the big question.
Absolutely. And I will say, when I originally had this idea to write this book, Elisa, I didn't want to write it as a how to podcast book.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't. Yeah, because I'm not My thing is I wanted to share my experiences and how my experience helped me and how my experiences could possibly help you. So my intention was, obviously I have this experience in radio and podcasting. So all of the lessons that I learned were in this medium of audio, but they could also help people in real life. So that was my big thing. I wanted to write a book that if you were into podcasting, you're into doing stuff like we're doing, Elisa, it's great for you. But if you're not into that, it could be a book that could be helpful for you, whether it comes to having meetings at work or meeting people in real life.
Because that's tough too. Like any work environment is very difficult. It's like, do you be fake all day? How do you communicate with people you don't like? Do you ever have that problem? Did you like everybody at that radio station? They seem pretty nice, actually.
I liked everyone. But my thing is, at least I come from a place of curiosity. So whether you like a person, love a person, loathe a person, you really should be curious about other people. And I think that's the problem with what's going on in our very polarized world. Everyone's sort of like hemming and hawing at each other, but no one really cares to think why that person thinks that way. And then we get siloed off and we talk into our echo chambers. So you don't have to like a person to have a conversation with them. You could be curious. You could be like, in a way, subliminally trying to figure out why you don't like that person when you have a conversation. So I think that curiosity piece is a big thing. Obviously, that drives you. You wouldn't do a podcast or a YouTube show, Lisa, if you weren't curious about what other people were thinking. And I think if we all carried that with us, I think the world would be a little better place, because we'd all of a sudden understand, what it's like to be that person. Why is that person thinking those crazy things? As opposed to being like, that person's a nut job, I don't want to talk to them.
Right. Okay. So when you don't like somebody a lot, right? So you should try to get to know that person more, because there's a lot of people involved, like with my podcast, actually. It's weird because like I love doing this, but then some people come on the podcast and they don't like me, but they want to be involved every week. It's very confusing, actually. But so those people, you think I should get to know those people more? Because
like if they're being dicks and being hurtful or being inappropriate, that's different. That's completely different.
Okay.
I'm just talking about like people that may rub you the wrong way.
Okay.
I moved down to Charleston, South Carolina a couple of years ago. And we were living in this apartment complex, and I'm a card-carrying liberal from New Jersey. So as most liberals, you look down upon like, people who don't believe what you believe. So I was in this complex where we're living, and this guy was driving around in this big red pickup truck with the QAnon symbols all over it, like the QAnon like acronym on the front grill of the car. And so me, as a person I just described, I'd be like, this person's a nut job. Why does he believe in QAnon? Blah, blah, blah. I could have that attitude. But I ran into the dude at the pool of our complex, and he could not have been the nicest person. He was so sweet. Yeah? We were talking about like bullshit stuff that people talk about in life, but not talking about politics. We talked about barbecuing, our families and such. But if I didn't have that curiosity piece where I was like, hey, what's this guy all about? I could just easily been like, I'm not sitting anywhere near that guy at the pool. I'm just going to avoid that guy. But just being curious to find out who this person was. Maybe if we had more conversations, I'd find out more about why he believes these certain things. But at that point, it wasn't necessary. We were having this really nice conversation with two guys just hanging out, and that was it. But again, the problem with people today is they don't want to have that conversation. They see someone different, they stay away from that person.
Yes, like especially during the election, I noticed the way people are so hateful towards others because of their views. I mean, that has got to go, right? There's nothing that you could have a view on that should make us hate you that much.
Absolutely. Bill Maher has the perfect line, and this is great for this discussion. He goes, you can hate Donald Trump, but you can't hate the people who like Donald Trump. Like, it's okay.
Right. Okay, that is a good point. I think
that's
so.
The problem.
Yeah.
Because people set up these lines in the sand. They're like, okay, that person likes Trump, so I'm not going to like that person. How do you know that? Don't like Donald Trump. That's cool, but you don't have to not like this person.
But could you? So I did notice that a lot of people are like, racist and like bigots.
Yeah.
That like Donald Trump. That is something I did notice. I mean, okay. So can I like somebody that's like a racist bigot? Should I look past the racist? Do you think?
Yeah, you don't have to. No, because those. If like I said, we talked earlier. If it's something that this person is so vitriolic or just not a nice person, there's no need to engage with that person. But there's no need also to ignore that person. Like if you happen to run into a person who happens to be, and just so you know, I'm a Democrat. I mean, racism is not just a Republican conservative.
I did notice it though. I'm sorry, I couldn't help but notice it. It's just, and I have to point it out. I mean, it's just something that I saw. I used to work in a Republican company, and the people that we would sell to were all racist, and they would say, the N word. Yeah. And FAGGOT. And it was killing me, Joe. It was killing. I'm just getting a caller from another country. I think I should take this call. Yes, Kermit and Friends.
How are you talking, Lisa? Are you live?
I'm live, yeah, because I got this great guest. He's a longtime radio guy, really nice guy. He has a book out about podcasting. I know you're a podcaster, Jimmy. So do you have a question for him?
I would be interested. I'll be interested in him.
Yes.
Definitely. And I'm not joking there, Lisa. I've just started a show.
Oh, you're on a show.
I had 2 little sips. In a sensible mood without being too fucked up and silly.
You're in a sensual mood? Is that what you said?
I'm in a like sort of talkative, sensible mood.
Okay, can you not call in when you're in a sensual mood, but call in when you have a question for the guest? That'd be much better, right? I mean, unless this is a sex podcast. I mean, it was like Joe's podcast, but
what do you want me to talk about? We're talking about racism there, which, everybody's the same color. Everybody lives on the planet Earth. Nobody's different from anybody else. We've all got the same skin, flesh, and blood.
Yeah. No, I'm not racist. You misunderstood me if you thought I was racist. I'm not racist. I just noticed that.
I know you're not. Yeah. I know you're not, Lisa. You welcome everybody up in all this, no matter where they come from.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you for your call. You're a nice guy. I need a call screener. I really do. That is somebody that I do need. It's hard to get a call screener for a podcast. I know you work day to day now, like in a podcast, some kind of podcast company.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that those things existed. So what is this company that you're working with now?
Yeah, so I work for a publishing company called Advantage Forbes Books. And what we do is we publish books for entrepreneurs and CEOs who want to write a book. And so when the company started, it was strictly publishing, hybrid publishing, where we would publish books for you. And then as time developed, they added a marketing wing. And then in the last couple of years, they decided to introduce podcasting. So currently I'm producing podcasts for dozens and dozens of CEOs and entrepreneurs who have books with us. So I'm there as their producer, but I'm also there as their consultant to get these people prepared to be podcasters when it's something they've never done before. They might have been really good at their job, whether it's in the financial sector, medicine, affordable housing. They can do all that, but they may not know how it is to be a podcaster. And that's what I do, help them.
And that company, so it's a book publishing company. So these people are good enough that they got a book deal, which who knows how to get that? How do you even get that, Joe? Do you know?
Well, it's a hybrid publishing. So if you hire us to write the book for you.
Oh, wow. And how much does that cost to have somebody to write a book for you?
I don't know.
You don't know? Yeah.
I always tell people, it's funny when people want to renew their contract and stuff like that. My joke is, I don't want to know how much anything costs. I get paid to work in the sandbox. So there's people above me or beside me that handle that stuff. I don't ever want to know. I don't know. Like when I was in radio, I didn't know how much a commercial costs, how much a sponsor. I don't. My brain doesn't work that way, because if I start to think about money, it affects the way I feel and think. So I'm like, nope, not gonna concern myself with that.
Okay, but when you did your book, did you get like a sweet advance?
No, I did it. The company I work for published it, and so I'll get royalties from it.
Yeah. Oh, royalties. Oh man, what happened to the big advances, like the $1 million? What happened?
Well,
is that
the traditional publishing?
House. Oh, that's another route. Okay.
That's traditional publishing, where they basically they'll pay you in advance X amount of dollars, and then you write the book, and then that's basically it. Unless you sell 1 million copies, you'll probably never see a dime of royalty in your life. But yeah, that's that model. That's the traditional publishing model.
Okay. So, but do you think this way's better somehow?
Well,
because you could have gotten, I think you could have gotten a big book deal.
Maybe, but I never really even thought about it. At least, to be honest with you, I never was how everyone has their book on their bucket list. Like, I want to write a book one day. I was never that person. And I never realized I had a book in me. But the one thing I realized as I started working with these entrepreneurs I was telling you about, I had accumulated all these soft skills. I didn't even know what that term was until I started working in business media. But I accumulated all these soft skills that I thought, oh, wait a minute. These things that I've learned actually could help other people. And so as I was helping these other folks, I realized, well, maybe wouldn't it be great if I wrote a book to help other folks that maybe can't work with us or write a book with us or do a podcast with us? And when I went to my bosses, they're like, it's the old comic line when you comics talk, they'll say, "Is this a thing?" And I'll be like, I went to the company, I'm like, "Is this a thing?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's a thing." And then we went and wrote the book.
Yeah, I didn't know like that could be a job, going into a publishing company, helping the authors become podcasters. That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you're just basically working with the authors all day. Is that a remote job?
Yep, it's all remote. So because all
but
of our
you moved
authors,
to South Carolina though.
Yeah, I moved to Charleston, South Carolina, because that's where the company's headquartered. So I came down here, and it's a hybrid job now post-pandemic. It wasn't initially, but all of our members are located all over the world. So I have people I'm producing in Denver and Phoenix and San Diego, and so you name the city, I have people that are working out of. My biggest thing, at least I will tell you, is the hardest transition for me was time zones. I had.
Oh, really? Wait, what do you mean? You were in New York, I thought.
Yes, because when I was in New York, everything was Eastern time zone. The other time zones didn't exist. So when you booked a guest, you said, "Hey, you're on our show at 7:00 in New York." And
yeah, it is very confusing. Yeah, no, I hear you with the time zone thing.
And now I'm like, okay, so I have to set up a time for 10 a.m. my time. All right, in Arizona, it's 8:00, but Arizona doesn't practice daylight savings. So half the year they're 3 hours behind. The other half of the year they're 2 hours behind. It was all very confusing for me.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of things that are very hard about this that people might not realize that are just watching. First of all, getting guests, it's I can't even begin to tell you, what that's like. I actually have. I know it's hard to believe I do have people doing it, but yeah, that's the time zone issue. I mean, there's a lot of really hard making it good. That's the first thing. That's the first thing. How do you make it good? It just has to. You have to be inspired to do it, right? I think the way to make anything good is you come from like good intentions, right? So what am I trying to share here? Am I trying to help people? Am I just looking to make money off this? Is it all for me, or am I trying to give the world something? And when I think of all the people that I really like listening to, like I love Esther Hicks and I love Oprah, and I think about those people, right? I'm like, oh, those people actually really helped me in my life. So I think the people I'm biggest fans of are people that have helped me, that my life changed because of them. So you just have to figure out a way to change people's lives and make them better. How the hell you do that? What do you think, Joe?
Absolutely. I will say, to your guest point, any podcast or person who works in radio will know this, that the guest booking process is without a doubt the hardest part of that.
It's a horrible, awful process. And this is why, Joe, for me.
Yeah.
So I don't like to reach out to people. Like everybody reaches out to the same comedians, the same, actors, like Andy Dick, right? Like he's my friend. Everybody reaches out to him to be on a podcast. So it's like, I don't want to reach out to people like that. I want to reach out to people that are like, I can help somehow. I don't want to reach out to people where like I'm just benefiting. They don't get anything out of it. That doesn't make me feel good, even though that is the radio way and that is the podcast way. How do you feel about that? Like when you're reaching out to people for your authors and the people you're reaching out to are not going to benefit whatsoever. If it's a very small podcast, like what will they really get out of it?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, the one thing I tell a lot of our folks is because they're niche. They're very niche in terms of what they're talking about.
Yes.
So to me, it's really more about the networking opportunities.
Yes.
You've probably heard the joke that one podcast is equal to 5 first dates. So
that's beautiful. Absolutely. And actually, I'd rather meet friends through this than any other way.
Yeah. No, because think about it. In what other time of your life, living in 2022, do you have a 1 hour uninterrupted conversation with another human being who's
nobody talks to anybody? Nobody talks to anyone. No one. They're looking at their phones, checking email, checking text. Nobody's looking at it. If you go to a restaurant, there's no conversation. I remember, when I me and Andy, when we would go to a restaurant, we would look at the other people there and they're not having fun. They're just staring at us actually. But, they're not having fun. Nobody's having fun. Nobody's talking. It's hard to have a good conversation and not everybody's good at it. I could tell you the last, few people I've dated, very weak conversational skills. And I consider myself like a top tier conversationalist and I want to meet other people like that. And it's tough out there, man. When I make friends, I want a good conversationalist. That's like my number one priority.
Well, I will tell you, Elisa, the reason I called the book Good Listen, because it has double meanings, create a good listen. It's good to listen. But the best way to have a conversation is to listen. Folks that are not good listeners, they're not going to be great at conversations. And when I say folks who are not good listeners, I mean like people who are like extroverts and type A personalities. When you have that kind of person trying to have a conversation, not listening, it's basically not a conversation. It's two people talking. You need to have a conversation where people are listening and reacting. That's why when I run into someone who's like an introvert or someone who's shy, they'll be like, I can't be good at conversations because I'm shy. I'm like, no, you should be great at conversations because you're shy, because you are willing to listen and let the other person speak. And then if that other person sparks something in you, then you speak. And that's the way everyone should handle a conversation, whether they're a type A personality or they're an introvert. If you're listening to what the other person's saying, that's how you create those magic moments in conversations, because you're listening to the other person, not waiting for that other person to finish speaking, waiting for silence, and then you say your bit. That's not a conversation.
So listen more, probably. See, it's hard for us like chatty Cathys out there.
Yeah,
it's hard.
It is, at least it's harder, but I will say that you will get more out of other people if you just listen. And I'm not saying that you don't dominate a conversation, because that's probably your personality. You're going to dominate a conversation. But if you're not getting anything else from the other person, what's the point? You can just turn that camera off, turn that mic off, and just talk to yourself all day, but you're not going to get anything out of it. It's when you have these connections with other people, that's how you develop real, it's that secret sauce, that magic, that chemistry that you get, that alchemy when you have a conversation with somebody else.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I guess you can be a better friend, a better, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, a better human if you do listen more. Okay, let's practice this on this last question before I let you go. Here's Jimmy Rizzo's back. Jimmy, we're going to try to listen to you, okay, buddy?
Yeah, I just want to say something to Joe there. I think he's a really nice guy. And I always get on with people in New York. And like podcasting, I used to be into that around about 2003. I used to use Sam Broadcaster, if you remember that program.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to do radio online, but hardly anybody used to listen to it. I used to have a great website and everything like that. But I love radio, but obviously, I'm a ham operator as well. I'm an amateur radio, but podcasting and playing music to people and chatting to people is like a dream job, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's like a dream job to have, isn't it?
Because
I love to talk to people, Joe, just like you.
Yeah, one of the great things about having a morning show, Jimmy, in New York was we would play the latest Taylor Swift song, and then out of that, we talk about what's going on in our lives, what's going on in the world. It's this great mix. Yeah. But I will say the reason why a lot of those morning shows are going the way of the dodo bird, Jimmy, is the fact that people don't want both of those things at the same time anymore. You're seeing that people want one of two things. They want conversation or they want music. And they're not getting their music from the radio station. That's why radio listenership is going down. It's because why am I going to listen to commercials and people yak about what's going on in their life if I can just go to Spotify or Apple Music or any one of the thousands of music platforms to get that? But if you want a good conversation, that's why podcasting has taken off. If you want just to talk, you get that from podcasting. And you really don't get that from radio unless you're listening to your local AM talk show. And most of that's very politics driven. So you have to go to podcasting to get these really enriching conversations.
That does sound true. Okay, this is a great caller. Gonzo. Yes, Gonzo, Kermit and Friends. How can I help you?
Hey, Lisa, this is actually Jimmy Rizzo's translator.
Okay.
He just said you guys are having a great show.
Thank you, Jimmy Rizzo's translator. That's a nice call. All right, what a doll. Okay, now I have this guy who I have no idea who this is. Grimmy. Hey, Grimmy.
Hi, I'm Sammy, Bo, and Andy.
Okay. Hi. Well, nice to meet you.
I just wanted to meet the famous Alyssa Jordana.
It's Elisa, but yes, nice to meet you. We're on with Joe. Have you been listening to what we've been talking about?
I kind of just got here, so I kind of have an idea. You were talking about commercials and stuff like that. I'm a little late to the show. I do apologize.
That's okay.
I didn't miss anything, Jimmy.
I do agree with Joe about the commercials and the stuff like that, because that's the one thing I disliked about television and I disliked about listening to radios. It's like, God damn, I got to listen to this shit. Man, I don't want to hear about this fucking political bullshit. I don't want to fucking hear about, the commercials. I don't want to hear that stuff. You know, I'm trying to have a good time and rock out and enjoy a movie or a TV show. And then I got to listen to some commercial that goes by that might be political that fucking puts me in a shitty mood. And now I can't enjoy my fucking show no more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people agree with you. Grim, is it Grimmy?
I go by Grimmy. I go by Sammy Boandy. I go by a lot of names.
Just out of curiosity, how did you find out about this show?
You can thank your wonderful friend Noodles.
Oh, Noodles. Wow.
PR person.
Now, I have a question I want to ask you. You like people with unique skills, right?
Yeah, of course.
I can swallow kibasas and hot dogs. Would you like that on a live show sometime?
Yeah, do you have one on hand?
No, I don't. And I just lost my wallet the other day, so I'm in the process of gathering everything up. So.
All right. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens.
Well, I will get out of here.
Okay.
I'll get out of here. I just wanted to come up and say hi and do this. I don't want to disrupt what the flow you have going.
Okay. All right. We'll talk another time. Okay. What a doll. Okay. People are very nice here. I mean, I guess they're nice. Okay. Yes. Noodles.
Hey, Lisa, I'm not going to be Noodles right now. I just want to let you know, Lisa, for 3 years, all right, I've been getting tormented on YouTube.
Okay.
And you having this up here make it so much fun, and you finally made YouTube fun for me, and I really appreciate it. And I don't know if Joe knows exactly what you're doing here, but you know, thank you for having this guy, and you're absolutely amazing. I really got to tell you that. I want to say that in public.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate everything you're doing for me. I love you. All right.
I love you too. You're so sweet. Wow. See, it really. Thanks, Noodles. Thanks. See, it really is nice. Like, how could you stop doing something like this, right, Joe? How could you stop? It's the best way to communicate with people. The best way to know people. And the easiest way, you can reach the most people at one time, right? I mean, otherwise it would just have to be one at a time. And now, you could meet everybody and they could contact you and actually get to know you. And it's just beautiful. And I mean, that's what I get out of it. What about you? What are your goals with this? What are you looking to accomplish?
Well, honestly, one of the things I try to coach people out of using the word audience.
Oh, really?
Audience is sort of like this monolith that doesn't have a face. You can't identify what an audience is. So I key in on the word community. And that's what you have with your show, Lisa. You have a community of people that all really enjoy what you do on the podcast and the YouTube show. So when I talk to people about when it comes to how do I build my audience, I'm like, don't worry about your audience. Build that community, because that will then grow into an audience. So you can't think of things in such a whole finite way. We're like, oh, I've got to get 1 million downloads. I've got to get 10,000 downloads. No, start with the people that love what you do, and then plant that seed and watch it grow. And if it doesn't grow, then you've got this really cool community of people that you connect with and enjoy what you do. You may not be able to get rich off it, but you will be able to enjoy the fruits of that and build connections with folks, meet people, and then grow this little pack that you have. And that's what people should be doing when they're doing a podcast. Don't think about big picture. Can I retire off this? Can I make a living off this? Start it small, build that community, and see what happens.
Okay. So don't look at it like, how much money am I going to make, or, am I going to have 1 million people? So you just look at it as how I can build it like day to day. Yeah. But how do you get a community? Like, because some people are starting like from square one, like they don't have any radio experience.
Yeah.
So the people that are starting from square one, how do they get anybody to care?
Well, first thing is don't care about metrics. Do not worry about, just do a show, promote it, be on social media, go into a Facebook group, go into a Reddit group, do it that way organically, because the only way podcasts grow is through word of mouth. There is no magic bullet. The first question I get from clients is like, so I've got this podcast. How do I get more listeners? And the joke I usually say is, if you want to build an audience, you steal an audience. So that means people on your show who have a pretty big following or are famous or even in the niche that you're in are famous in that niche. That's how you do that. But again, the rest of the stuff is just like grinding it out and doing it and enjoying it. If you don't enjoy it, who cares if you have 10,000 listeners or 10? Like, if it's no fun, what's the point?
Hey, you got to make it fun for yourself. If you're having fun, the people
foremost, you have to enjoy it, because no one's going to enjoy something you're not enjoying. So if you're not doing that, the rest of it means absolutely nothing. And then if you keep just doing it and doing it, I mean, Joe Rogan's a perfect example. Say what you will about the guy, but he didn't sign a $100 million deal from Spotify because he decided to do a podcast. He did that because he did 900 episodes of a podcast and then was able to plateau to reach this level that no one else has ever seen before.
So why do you think he's been able to reach that level?
Because, well, first and foremost, he's a great podcast host. Like, he's really talented. He's good at conversations, but he just kept doing it. He did 2 or 3 episodes a week. He just grinded it out. And that's why I tell people it's a very cliche term, but when you're doing podcasting, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you just keep, if you're enjoying doing it, you just keep doing it, and then things will happen one way or the other. Either you get 0 listeners or you gain some. But it's just like any form of entertainment, Elisa. Podcasting is no different from a TV show or movie or piece of art. If people don't want that thing, it's like it's consumerism, it's capitalism. If people don't want that thing, then you could stop doing it. But if you don't care, if people want this thing, you just do it. You just enjoy yourself.
Right. Just do it. Enjoy yourself. Don't worry too much. But Joe Rogan, like, he must have been worried a little bit. I mean, he must have been veering in a direction or knowing a little bit. He must have had knowledge about how to grow it, because there's more to it than I think just putting it out there.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, he'll even say, he started on Second Base by being an entertainer and having a group of comedians who maybe had, again, the adage of build an audience, steal an audience. He probably had that at the beginning where he had access to folks that regular podcasters like ourselves would not have access to. But he kept doing it. Like, if he all of a sudden was like, oh my God, I'm not getting 1 million episodes after that first week, we would never know what Joe Rogan is. But he knew he was enjoying it. It was a side hustle for him. He was a stand-up comedian / actor / TV host. And the podcast was sort of like a passion project. That's the way you should treat podcasting. Treat it like a hobby, but act like it's a profession. It's like,
treat it like it's a hobby, but act. So when you say act like it's a profession, do you think people should do it every day?
Not every day, but do a schedule that fits. And schedule is the key word there. So that means if you only have time, you have a full-time job, you have kids, you can't do 5 podcasts a week, but you can probably do 1 podcast a week, and you're going to drop it every Tuesday. Then you have that professional mindset of like, okay, I've got 7 days to put this podcast out on Tuesday. And then people, if you're a little more forward thinking, think about it, your podcast as seasons. Think about, hey, I'm going to do 10 episodes this season, and then I'm going to take a break and then come back. I think one of the worst things that happens in podcasting is, and you're very aware of this, it's the pod fade. It's that podcast that runs and then all of a sudden just out of nowhere stops. That's called a pod fade.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
It means that the show just fades out into oblivion, that there's no finality to it. It just stops publishing. That's what's called pod fade.
Oh, I never heard that term before.
Oh, yeah. It's basically if you zip through a podcast feed and all of a sudden you'll see there was like 23 episodes, but then there wasn't an episode in 2 years. That's a pod fade. Unless it was like it was
like people that quit, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, people that quit. Like, okay, yeah. I mean, you think about quitting all the time, of course.
Of course. But the thing is, what the pod fade means, like, it just fades into oblivion. So, and that's what happens with people doing podcasts. But people do that because of the stress of, oh my God, I got to do an episode every week. I got to do 2 episodes every week.
I know.
You don't have to do that.
You don't have to do it. So what do you do? What are you doing currently with your podcasting?
Well, with my podcast, it's weekly because of the job I have. But for people who I say are just starting out, treat your show like a TV show where it's 12 episode seasons, where, say, in October, I'm going to start a new season of 12 new episodes. And then come December, like, all right, cool, I'm taking off for the holidays. The new season starts in January. Boom. That's a great mindset, because then you can work in advance, bank a bunch of episodes during your break, and then you're refreshed and energized for that new season. And it gives, again, the schedule component. It gives you a schedule, and it gives your audience a schedule. Like, oh, okay, cool. Elisa's taking the summer off, but she's going to be back in September. All right, here come new episodes of Elisa's show on YouTube. That is a big component. It's the expectations. Your expectations and the people that are listening are expectations of when that show is going to come out.
Okay. All right. So I think that's good advice. So everybody take Joe's advice, obviously. Okay,
don't take my advice. I'm just saying this is what I've learned, and if you could learn from it, cool. If not, you could think I'm just some jabroni who doesn't always talk about. That's cool too, but I'm just speaking from experience.
I think it sounds right. I mean, to take a little break once in a while. The only fear is that you wouldn't come back. Where do people hear you now? Because I know you must have some kind of podcast right now.
Yeah. So I'm currently hosting the Forbes Books podcast. So if you're into entrepreneurship and
Forbes Books,
it's the Forbes Books podcast, available obviously on all podcast platforms. And I interview entrepreneurs, CEOs. I just interviewed this lady. You're gonna love this, Elisa.
Yeah,
she is. I don't want to give too much away, but she was very successful in finance, multiple entrepreneur. She is now selling an American whiskey bottle, MSRP $1,500.
That's how much the whiskey bought. Oh, 1 second. Hold on 1 second.
Joe, what advice would you give Elisa about her sister and other naysayers trying to discourage her from doing podcasts?
Okay, so my sister tuned into my podcast at a very bad moment when I was being yelled at and like someone was cursing at me. And she said, and also she clicked on a link of me doing Man on the Street with a couple homeless people. And she says, "Oh, you're too good for this. You know, what are you doing? Just stop." What do you say does anybody ever say that to you? Anything like that?
I mean, not to judge you, Elisa, but my thing about comedy is never punch down. So there's nothing funny about talking to someone who's having a tough time in life. So that's probably the way your sister was looking at it. Was like, this is Elisa taking advantage of people's bad situations. So the best, this is a big thing in the comedy world. And that's why, I mean, there's some comedians who decide to punch down, and some are famous and some are just unknown. But the thing about comedy, the way I treat comedy is never punch down. If you can, that's why politics is great comedy fodder, because everybody loves to make fun of a politician or a rich person or something like that. So in that case, I'm again not judging you, but if it was me, I always take that tact of like, there's no need to make fun of people that are a lower status, for lack of a better word. So, and your sister probably read it that way, like, hey, you're better than that because you don't need to do that. You can make fun of other people, but not people that are maybe having a hard time in life.
Okay, so what about having people on your show? Are you familiar with the term like whack packer?
Yeah, from the Howard Stern show, yeah.
Yeah, so what do you think about having those people on the show? Is that punching down?
I mean, as long as they're in on the joke, I guess it's okay. I mean, as long as they're enjoying and benefiting from it. But if they're not, all they're getting is being shat on or being put down, I don't think there's anything really fulfilling for anybody, whether it's
really? So you don't think that's funny? Like so when they have the so when you have like a mentally disabled person, you're not making fun of them, but you're like highlighting them. Do you see a problem with that?
I mean, I personally wouldn't do it, but I think there's a nuanced way to do that on a show, and I'm sure Howard does, where it's just not making fun of that person. But yeah, I think to each his own, but like I wouldn't do that kind of thing, but some people would. But I think as long as that person is, I guess, has their wits about them, and even though they could have issues, whether physical or mental, maybe they are aware of what's happening. And if they're getting something out of it, that maybe they're enjoying that experience on a show, I think that's fine. My thing is, I never want to judge someone or tell people what to do with their life. So if those people that are on the show and then maybe they're maybe not on equal footing as someone else, it's like, as long as they're enjoying it, I can't begrudge them. Like if they're getting a kick out of being featured on a radio show or TV show, I mean, that's cool. If it's whatever brings you joy, I'm all about. So if that brings joy to the host or to the guest, cool. That's fine. I mean, whatever makes you happy. I'm never one to take anything away from joy for people that, there's people arguing about gun control. If having a gun makes you happy, cool, go have a gun. You know what I mean? So I know that's kind of a random example, but like people get joy in different ways. So if they're getting joy from that experience, it's good on you.
Okay. All right. So what you're saying is, okay. So like when you're doing a comedy bit, you have a very I guess like highbrow way of doing it. So how do you do it? How do you put your bits together?
Well, here's the thing. So I took improv and sketch comedy class at UCB in New York, the famous improv theater. And one thing I learned along the way there is that you have to earn comedy. And what I mean by that is you can't all of a sudden say, I want to be a stand-up comic, and then do a stand-up comedy where you're just spouting racist things or things that could be taken as offensive or something of that ilk. You have to earn yourself. You have to earn the audience's respect to get to that point. So in the case of what you were doing with that homeless situation, maybe you've never done anything like that before. And you did, so the audience doesn't, for the people listening who just maybe randomly picked up on that show that day, or like your sister, they could be like, what does that even mean? Where's that come from? So I think it's all about earning that. And I think the best comics in the world who get away with saying edgy stuff, like the Bill Burrs of the world, the Dave Chappelles of the world, they earned it. They put in the hard-earned hours on shitty stages across the country, built this amazing community, built it up into an audience, and then they expect them to say these certain things, and they have leeway. But if you're just starting out, you don't have that leeway. You need to build that. And then your audience will then understand where you're coming from, because the things that you are saying or doing are not just these random thoughts that people could spout out like a crazy person on the streets.
So if a very famous comedian that's successful does a racist joke, you're saying they earned it more than someone starting out?
Yes, because there's context. Because so if that person says, and racist, it's just to say offensive. Like if that comedian says something offensive later on, and they've been doing it for 10, 15 years, people are like, oh, that's funny, and I accept it. But if they're just meeting this random comedian and they're like, whoa, coming in hot. So it's really just, again, it's the expectations piece, Lisa, that we're talking about. Like if your audience expects a certain amount of a certain way of content that you're giving them, then they will understand, oh, okay, like this guy's not really a blank, but he said this funny thing. So I think that's very important. I think that's why, like the Howard Sterns of the world, I mean, even though he's kind of changed his ways a little bit, he's not as, as edgy as he used to be, but he earned that. Like he earned that from like working his way up from shitty little radio stations to becoming this legendary personality. It didn't just happen overnight. And that's why you see like a lot of Howard Stern wannabes flame out so quickly, because they never earned that. They were just like, oh, Howard Stern did this bit, so I can do that bit. So I think it's something that you have to build audience expectations. Again, going back to the podcasting thing we were talking about, it's like if your audience expects you to do a podcast every Tuesday, you better do a podcast every Tuesday. If you have edgy material, you can't just all of a sudden just come out with it. You have to build up into it and build the audience so they accept what you're coming from.
Okay, I have a fabulous clip of you.
Oh no!
It's one of the best clips I've ever seen of anyone. It's the one that you emailed me. Do you want to introduce this a little bit?
Oh God, I hope not. No, you're not showing my YouTube.
You don't want? Why? You sent it to me.
I'm crying.
It's great.
Yeah. So on the last day of PLJ, it was May 30th of 2019. They let us basically do whatever we wanted. So all past radio personalities from PLJ came on the air, and during our last morning show, we basically talked to the audience for the 4 hours, but then at the end of the show, we all finished up with our final thoughts.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what I was going to say.
You didn't?
No, I had no idea, because I didn't really want to plan out like a speech.
Really? That wasn't like pre-written or anything. You spoke from you were so emotional. I couldn't believe I'd never seen someone like this. It was so amazing. It was the best radio I think I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot. This is incredible. Everybody check this out. This is just, you really love this job. That's what this shows. This is how much somebody can love a job. And I just was so touched by this. And you're really like free flowing with emotions. And that's such a nice quality to see. Are you an easy crier?
No, that's the thing.
No?
I do not cry at anything, and I will say I love that job a lot, Lisa, but I think the reason I was so emotional was I knew I couldn't do that job without the people in my life. And all I can think about is all the struggles. My mother was a Cuban refugee. My dad was an immigrant from Spain. They worked their asses off to provide and give me and my brother everything we ever wanted in life.
Oh, really?
And they let us do whatever we wanted in terms of careers. My mom's big thing was, I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care if you go to school, as long as you're a good person. And so all of these thoughts of like everything my mom and dad taught me and the stuff I learned from the folks on the morning show, that's why I got so emotional. Just like, man, this is sort of like this season finale or series finale send off for my radio career.
Was your family listening?
Yeah, my wife was in the studio with us, and my family was listening, and yeah, it was a very emotional day.
All right, everybody check this out. Joe being very emotional on his last day.
I just want to say I'm probably the luckiest guy in the history of broadcasting. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was growing up. I knew I wanted to be in show business. I was growing up like where people loved like Don Mattingly and Darryl Strawberry, like David Letterman was my hero. I always wanted to be in show business somehow, but I'm from a family of immigrants. My mom, a Cuban refugee, my dad from Spain, and they came here with basically nothing and raised two boys to live out their dreams. And I went to William Patterson College and fell in love with radio. And I said, you know what, it'd be fun if I did an internship. And my mom's favorite radio station was PLJ. And I interviewed here, and I got an internship here. And the only reason I took the internship initially was because it was near the PATH station. I was like, I don't know much about New York. I don't get around much. I'll intern there. I'll have fun for a spring semester. And next thing you know, I get hired as an intern. Then I become a promotion person. And then Todd, for some reason, saw me at an event at Right Playland, and I was like a big goofball. And Todd said, you're pretty good. And so they...
I don't think I've ever seen you cry, Monk. It's kind of freaking me out.
I know. Give him a hug. I can't get over there.
But then I ended up with Scott and Todd, and I learned so much from them. Todd became like a big brother to me and always looked after me. And there were so many years and so many trials and tribulations here, and I could have been out so many times, but Todd always had my back. And I'll never forget that, Todd. And finally, I met my wife, who was a promotion director here, and I can't imagine. God, I sound like a jerk off.
I wasn't going to say that because you're already crying, but yeah.
I can't imagine my life without Teresa, and I kind of, she's like the most amazing and kind person I've ever met, and for someone to put up with someone like me for so long.
Yeah, she does deserve a medal.
Yes, a round of applause for Teresa.
Yeah, Teresa, we love you.
I'm just so thankful, and I love so much, and I love all you so much, and I just want to thank the station for giving me like the best 24 years of my life, and who knows what's going to happen, but I just know that I'm just the luckiest bastard from Jersey, so thank you very much for all you guys.
Oh, Monk, we love you.
Monk,
we love you.
That was so sweet.
What a pussy that guy.
No, you were just being honest. You were very transparent. I love that. That's the best. I'm sure you got a lot of compliments on that clip.
Yeah, I was really proud of what we did there, and I was just so. I mean, I've told you this. I said it there. I was just so fortunate. Who knows where my career would be if I didn't sign up for that internship? What I'd be doing, and I was just so happy that I had the opportunity to do it, and I obviously was good at it, or I wouldn't have lasted so long. But we all need that opportunity, and I got it and took advantage of it and just ran with it. So when you have that opportunity, you just got to go for it.
Absolutely. Okay. So if people want to reach you for help or for anything, podcasting advice or crying, or they want to cry with you, how do they reach you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm mostly active on Twitter and Instagram at Joe Partavila. So Joe Partavila, Pardavila. If you Google me, my book will probably come up. It's called Good Listen. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you get your books. There's the soft cover, there's a ebook, and there's an audiobook available too. So whichever way you take in your books, you can get it.
Okay. And was this okay as a podcast?
Yes, it was excellent. It was some amazing guests along the way. I mean, we met Jimmy and Grimmy, and it was a blast. I want to say, I know you want to get rid of me here, but I will say the first time I ended up in the newspaper was because of Kermit the Frog.
What?
Yeah. So
what do you mean?
In 1980, I was in first grade at St. Paul's School in Jersey City. And it just broken. The news had just broke that the Muppet Show was being canceled. And so my class decided to write a petition to bring back the Muppet Show. And so
wow.
For some reason, the Jersey Journal found out about this petition, and our picture is in the newspaper of like all of us standing together over the petition. But it was the first time it was ever in any kind of media. It was because of this Muppet Show petition that we had signed.
Wow.
It's kind of
Look
funny
at
that,
that.
Kermit and Friends, but I just wanted to bring that up because it was like very random that like of all the things that I could have just, been connected with like this Kermit connection here. So thank you very much for having me. Like, I'm always on the other side of things. So anytime anyone wants me on the show, I'm always appreciative and honored. So thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And just curious, like you said, you're not available Sundays. I was just wondering why. Is that a football thing?
It's my day. Sunday's my
wow.
So I call my slouch day. And so I've been doing this since I was a child. So on Sundays, I basically don't go online. All I do is I sit, watch football games for 12 hours, watch my New York Jets lose every week. But yeah, Sunday's my slouch day. It's my day to disconnect and refresh and just do nothing but just chill out and just, have fun.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Slouch day. All right. I guess slouch day is better than this, but I just really appreciate you so much, for coming on the show. I know people learned a lot and, come back anytime. So just thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And keep doing what you're doing. Like I said, as long as you love what you're doing, who cares what else happens?
Oh, so sweet. Love that guy. Thank you, Joe. Thank you everybody for calling in today. I know it was a surprise podcast. Nobody knew it was coming. I didn't know it was coming. I don't know. I got the inspiration to do it. We're probably going to do some IRL later. I just got invited to a karaoke. I'll tell you what I got invited to later. I'll read it to you. This guy who is a chef for celebrities sent me an Instagram message to invite me to a karaoke night tonight. I believe I will be streaming it. I believe I will. If I can get my selfie stick together and my lighting, I will be live streaming that. Jimmy Rizzo's still here. Jimmy, why are you still here? Come on, we're ending the show. Why?
Hey, Elisa, if that guy doesn't inspire you, I mean, what a lovely guy he is, isn't he?
He's a lovely guy. He's really cool. Yeah, he's great. No, I liked him, Jimmy. I just don't know why you're still here because we're ending. But, he was fantastic.
Elisa, you cut me off in mid-conversation when I was having a nice conversation with Joe, and you just took me down. I don't understand why. But listen, everyone...
You're mad?
No. Everyone that's listening, if Joe doesn't inspire you, there must be something wrong because Joe, what a guy Joe is.
He's a great guy. He's great. People are calling me. Everybody stop calling me right now. I'm ending the show. Everyone, please stop calling me.
At least anyway, Joe is one of the nicest guys. I mean, Joe, I know your head's pretty big when I say this, but Joe is one of the nicest guys you've ever had on your show, Lisa.
Oh, that's great. And, it was really meant to be because I was talking to him, online, and he said he wasn't available Sundays. And that's when, all the people come. All the fans come.
Lisa, right? Here's the thing.
What?
Be happy in what you're doing and build a community. What you're doing there now, it will pick up. You're doing really good there, Lisa. I like the fact that you're going out now doing live streaming.
Yeah, I'm doing IRL and I'm making money doing it. I can't believe I'm making money doing this. It's unbelievable. I'm shocked. Trust me, Jimmy. I'm shocked. I can't believe it. So
as well, I'll give you a little tip, right? The secret about live IRL and going out is talking to people because you don't know what's going to happen. People like the interaction with other people.
I know I do that. Haven't you watched? I've been doing that constantly. And also I met this dog. Here, I'll show you this dog that I met. I think you're going to like this dog. Hold on one second. Let me just bring this up. I met a cool dog. Look.
Yeah.
This dog is like literally up my butt humping me, like having sex with me. This dog.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I met a dog. I met so many people. Yeah. I had such a great time.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Lisa?
So that was Carol's house. So I was at Carol's house, and this dog kept humping me and chasing.
Carol.
You like Carol?
Carol looks a little bit older than me. She looks as if she's maybe, I think she's in her 80s because she did say her age, didn't she? I think.
Yeah. She's great. She loves live streaming. So it's been terrific. Thank you, Charmin. Yeah, this is a terrific community. So the plan is I'm going to do my show, every Sunday at 11, but also I'm going to do IRL during the week so people can enjoy that. And Jimmy, if you'd like to be a part of this, I love that. And you enjoyed our guest today, Joe. I knew he would inspire people. What?
Elisa, that was brilliant what he said. But remember, the trick is be happy in what you're doing. Have a community, which you've got there now. And the next thing is going out and interacting with people and tell people where you are, where they can get in touch with you. And you build a community that way as well, meeting people on the street.
Yeah, absolutely.
Elisa, this is one of the best shows you've ever done.
This show? Wow, thank you. Thank you, Jimmy. Oh, you're so sweet. I just love you. All right, thank you. Please come back to this.
Thank you, Elisa.
Excuse me?
I said thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. And in honor of Joe, I think I'm going to play Andy's song, celebrating Charleston, South Carolina. This is a beautiful song. And we'll see you next week. Actually, sorry, not next week. It's Tuesday. I'll see you later on IRL and on Sunday on Kermit and Friends.
Are you ready? It kind of rushes in, and I like to take my time when I'm going in. Charleston, South Carolina, like a Georgia peach. Charleston, South Carolina, or Texas cowboy. Either way, I like to go in fast and real Southern. 'Cause I was born in Charleston. Charleston, South Carolina. Charleston, South Carolina. 56, still raking up dicks. That's not really a sentence. Doesn't make sense. I think I meant to say letting them suck my dicks. No, that doesn't make sense either. What I meant to say is I'm 56 and they want my 50. They want my 56 dicks. What are you doing? Oh, you're looking at yourself on camera. God, what a weirdo. Charleston, South Carolina.